Okay, great. So today we're going to talk about the Pythagorean Theorem. And the Pythagorean Theorem, it only works for right triangles. So what is a right triangle? A right triangle is a triangle that has a 90-degree angle. So this angle right here is 90 degrees, and we call it a right angle. Okay? Now, on the right triangle, you have two sides that are next to the 90-degree angle. They're called A and B, and they're called legs. So the legs, leg A and leg B, are adjacent or next to the right angle. Now, the right angle forms an arrow that points at the longest side. Does anybody know what the longest side is called? It's called C. Good. It's C. You're following the alphabet. It starts with an H. It's called the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse is going to be your longest side. Now, Pythagoras was a famous Greek mathematician, and he discovered this theorem, that's why it's named after him, that if he were to take a square, A times A would be A squared. And if he took the square of B, B times B is B squared. These two, A squared plus B squared, would add up to equal, this one is the harder one to draw, let's add an angle here, C times C, which is C squared. And this is his theorem. So what's great about this is if I already know two of the sides, I can use this theorem to find the third side. Here's an example how that would work. Let's say I know that A is equal to 3 and B is equal to 4. A equals 3, and it could be any kind of unit. Feet, inches, centimeters. So if I say, okay, well, A is 3, if I take 3 and I square it and I add it to 4 squared, I'm going to get C squared. So 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16. What would C squared be then? Yeah, 25 equals C squared. Yes. 25 is C squared. But what's C? Well, in order to get rid of a square, to undo a square, we do what's called the square root. So if we take the square root of C squared and the square root of 25, the square root asks the question, what number times itself is 25? Can anyone think about what number? Can you think of a number times itself that gives you 25? 5. So that means C is equal to 5. Now let's look at how we would do that on the calculator. If we don't know what the square root of 25 is off the top of our head, we could use the calculator. So I'm just going to show you how to use the calculator to find the square root. Is everybody ready for that? Okay, so if you have your calculator handy, I'll put the calculator on the side. And does anybody see the square root symbol on your calculator? Where do you see it? Right above x squared. That's because x squared and the square root are what we call inverse operations. So x squared, it means they undo each other. So x squared is the inverse of the square root. Square root, meaning it undoes it. Think about some other inverse operations. What's the inverse operation of addition? Subtraction. You already know that by heart. What's the inverse operation of multiplication? Division. It undoes it. So the inverse of a square or squaring a number The inverse is the square root. The square root undoes it. So what we do, you can see right here on my calculator, there's the square root right above x squared. You're going to press second square root. That's going to give you that square root symbol, and then you're going to type in 25 and you push enter, and you see you get 5. Okay, so that other one above the x squared, that one, don't use that one for now. That one is totally different. That's x, it's the x root, and that will come up later when you're dealing with cube roots, fourth roots, fifth roots. That's different than square roots, okay? So we're only going to use that square root button. Let's try another problem. So I'm going to turn the page. I see a question lingering. No, I'm not seeing any questions lingering. Okay, so let's draw a triangle. Now a triangle can be oriented any kind of way. So maybe this is my triangle like this. Here's the right angle. Okay. If I know that this right here is, let's say, 6 centimeters, and this is 8 centimeters. First of all, I want to find this. I'm going to call this x because I don't know how long it is. I'm going to call it x. Now we have to identify, do we have A, B, or C? So which one of these measurements is A, and which one of them is B, and which one of them is C, based on even the orientation of the triangle? 6 would be A, 8 would be B, and X would be C. Why do you know that X has to be C? It's because this right angle draws an arrow to the hypotenuse. Whereas the legs are always next to the hypotenuse, okay? So now the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So tell me what to plug in and where. How would I set this up to solve it? Yes, tell me. Squared, right? Squared, yep. I like how you're using the units, good. Uh-huh. Yes. Right, we want to solve for x. So now to solve for x, this is basically algebra. What's that? Solve for x, the missing side. So 6 squared is 36. 8 squared means 8 times 8. 8 times 8 is 64 equals x squared. What should I do next? 100 equals x squared. And finally, I want to get x. I want to get x by itself. I want to undo the square. So what do I use to undo a square? Square root, yes, or the calculator. Square root of x squared is x. Square root of 100 is 10. Because 10 is the same thing as 100, or 10 times 10 is 100, right? So now we know the missing side here is 10 centimeters. 10 centimeters is the missing side. Okay, so let's try another one. These aren't always going to work out like super evenly, but let's try another one. This time I'm going to draw the triangle a different way. Here's my right angle. This time I know that this side is 15 centimeters, and I know the height is, hold on, let me think of it, 12 centimeters. Okay, so this is my missing one right here, x. I couldn't even, actually, do you guys see that I'm not even ready right now to find the area? I couldn't find, how come I couldn't find the area of this triangle? What would I need to have the area? I would need the base, right? This would be considered right here the base to find the area, because area equals 1/2 base times height. So I would need this base. Could I find the perimeter of this shape right now? No. Why not? You need that missing side. So we have to do the Pythagorean theorem. Now tell me, do you know which sides are A, which side is B, which side is C? That's the first thing to establish. So which side is A? Sure. A would be X. Which one would be B? And by the way, it doesn't actually matter which one is A and B. They're interchangeable because those ones you're just going to add together. The most important one to realize is C. And look at the arrow from the right angle. The arrow is going to point to C, which is the hypotenuse, okay? So now let's plug it in. A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Tell me what I'm going to plug into my formula to find the missing value. Who can tell me? X squared plus 12 squared equals 15 squared. Do you see that now I have the 15? I don't have the leg. So how are we going to solve for X? We want to solve for X. Any thoughts about how I could solve for X? Well, first I want to go X squared. I can't do anything about that. What is 12 squared? 144. Oh, because we multiply it by itself, right? 15 squared, I happen to know, is 225, but you can always do that on your calculator. So if you don't know 15 squared, you take your calculator, turn it on, go 15 squared, or you could even use that to the second power, and you get 225. Okay, now what should I do to get X by itself? X is on this side. One thing I want to do, yes, I want to subtract the 144 from the 225. Instead of adding them, I have to subtract them to get X by itself. So subtract 144, you get X squared equals 81. Okay, does anybody know what's the next step? Take the square root. If you want to get X by itself, you take the square root, and we get X equals, does anybody know what number times itself gives you 81? 9. So that means X here equals 9 centimeters. Okay, now do I have enough information to find the area of this triangle? What would be the area now? 1/2 base of 9 times height of 12. And by the way, to make this easier, you could take half of one of these numbers. I could take half of 12. Half of 12, that's just like a cross cancel, isn't it? You know, you remember cross cancel? 2 goes into 12 6 times. You could do that. Equals 6 times 9 is 54 centimeters squared. If you did 9 times 12 and took half, you would get the same exact thing. So you could do that on your calculator as well. What would be the perimeter of the triangle? Add up all the sides. 15 centimeters plus 9 centimeters plus 12 centimeters is 36? Is that right? Oh yeah, 36. 36 centimeters. So once we have that missing side, then that's the reason why we're able to find the area and the perimeter now. So you guys have several problems. One where you're going to find the missing side, then find the perimeter and the area. Any questions on that before you try the problems? Okay.